Son of a Witch is the follow-up novel to the original Wicked novel. This book was published in 2005, 2 years after the Wicked musical debuted on Broadway in 2003. This book follows Liir, Elphie's son by Fiyero, on his own coming-of-age story and his hero's journey, shaped by his grief, his uncertainty about his identity, and, major spoiler alert, becoming a parent himself. Additionally, Son of a Witch is a story about how systems of power exploit and fail the vulnerable among us, and how those failures shape identity whether we want it to or not. Author Gregory Maguire said it best in an interview with the publisher HarperCollins at the end of the audiobook for Son of a Witch. He said the following:
If Wicked was the tale of a woman finding her individual voice against an oppressive authority, then Son of a Witch is the tale of a man who realizes in order to make an impact, he has to belong to society. He cannot be a hermit.
Now, aside from analyzing it through that lens, I'm also looking at this from a more personal angle. I'm a mom to 2 little boys, and reading this book proceeded to break my heart over and over again. And like a crazy person, I kept coming back for more, because apparently I love a book that rips me apart emotionally, I guess. So if you like to be ripped apart emotionally, join me while I tell you about Liir, the son of a witch and potential future father of a witch. Part 1, Under the Jackal Moon, the present. Let's just assign it to the year 2005, since that's the year this book was published. We open our story with Oz's favorite Uber/caravan driver, Otzi Maglehand, as she drives her clients to their desired destination. Everyone is a bit on edge. There have been some missionary moths from the Emerald City discovered strangled with their faces removed.
Oh, that's terrible.
Which makes her clients nervous.
You seem kind of psyched.
No, I'm bummed.
On the side of the road, Otzi spots a body, and worrying that it might be the body of another Mont with a ripped off face, she goes to inspect it. She determines the body to be that of a young man. The young man hasn't had his face removed or anything like that, luckily, and Otzi determines the young man is still alive. But after some protestations from her clients, she loads the man in her carriage and hauls him to the cloister of St. Linda in the Shell Shallows. Oh, girl. Are you trying to kill him, Otzi? Because if you recall, this is the Montry that Elphie sought refuge in after Fiyero's death. You know, the one where the newbie Mont decided Oz Christmas parties were so much more important than tending to somebody in the middle of a fucking crisis. At the Montry, they at least managed not to kill the poor guy, at least for the moment. The Monts managed to do a basic triage on him and establish his condition. He's not in good shape despite being alive. The superior Mont believes that this is Liir, the kid that she sent with Elphie to Kiamo Ko some 15 odd years ago. Okay, he's her fucking kid, just come out and say it. But I guess the Montry doesn't want to get sued for negligence. The head bitch tries to remember the kid's name, and she can't remember it, but it does come to her in the middle of the night. His name is Liir. Yeah, these bitches are fucking incompetent. There are 2 medical Monts, sisters doctor and apothecary, that are in charge of Liir's care, and they're actually kind of funny. They don't really get along and they clash. They're kind of like Dr. Kelso and Dr. Cox from Scrubs.
Dr. Kelso is the most evil human being on the planet and may in fact be Satan himself.
I mean, all you do is bust my ass day in and day out.
They're always clashing heads. They approach their position with some compassion and, some level of professional decorum. They determine that Liir, in addition to having some broken bones, has some head trauma. I mean, you think? The guy came into your care unconscious and gravely injured and all. I mean, what was your first clue? They determine his prognosis is not good. Otzi mentions notifying the next of kin, and the head bitch in charge says she believes that this is Elphie's son. Otzi and her helper Nub decide that this is a good time to skedaddle, not wanting to be under the same roof as a son of a witch. It looks like that smear campaign that the wizard did is working 15 years later. Great. The Monts are obsessed with knowing whether or not Liir has any green in his skin to definitively prove that he is Elphie's son, which, okay, that's not how genetics works. So they decide that this is a great time to violate his bodily autonomy. Gross. HBIC pulls Sister's doctor and apothecary off their actual duties of, I don't know, caring for a sick patient and requests that they go out and determine the nature of the mangled moth from the Emerald City. The head bitch in charge insists. Mother HBIC ropes in a newbie mont named Candle to sit with Liir. She does this after they all hear Candle playing music in the courtyard on an instrument called the Domingan, and they think, oh, she can play music for him while he dies. Like, okay, great, maybe you should be trying to take care of him first. Now they decide to make Candle do this after a red phoenix stops in the yard because he heard Candle playing. No one in the Monterey likes the sound of the thing, so they're happy to plop Candle in with Liir so they don't have to listen to her practicing for now. Rude. So, the Monts are incompetent medical providers, and they're also racist as shit. Candle is a quadling woman. The quadlings, if you remember, are an indigenous coded people from the southern part of Oz, which is marshy and wet. It's essentially just the Oz, Florida Everglades. She was left there by a relative who said he'd collect her in a year, and that's all the Monts who are there currently know, and that's all they really care to know. While Candle is playing for Liir, he's back in his memories in 1995 or whatever, the day Dorothy Gale murdered Elphaba in 1995. The aftermath of Elfie's death. In her state of sleep-deprived delirium, Elfie takes Dorothy up to the tower and locks Liir, Nanny, and the Cowardly Lion in the kitchen. They manage to bust out to find Dorothy coming down the stairs in tears, crying, "She's good." Obviously talking about Elphaba. Nanny goes up to the tower to inspect and confirms that Elfie is in fact gone, but she will not let Liir go up and see. With Elfie gone, Liir chooses to leave with Dorothy and co and head to the Emerald City. He's clearly grieving. He grabs Elfie's cape and throws it on and grabs her broom, all while he's in tears. See what I said about this breaking my mom heart? All I want to do is just give this poor little boy a hug and tell him it's okay, baby. Like I do for one of my boys. Although, granted, Liir is 14. My boys right now are 6.5 and 4.5, and they cry if they get a boo-boo. On the road, Dorothy at least tries to offer poor Liir a bit of sympathy and support, but he doesn't know how to interpret her intentions. He explains to Dorothy that Elphaba never outright confirmed that Liir her son, but come on, it's so fucking obvious. And it's also obvious to me that she didn't confirm it due to this stupid purity culture bullshit that stinks up the main Oz culture. Can't say she had a baby out of wedlock because, God forbid, a woman have sex. Gasp. Now, he tells her when he and Elfie were at the Monterey, one day they packed his shit up and sent her and him off to Kiamoko together. Yeah, clearly they knew that Liir was Elfie's kid, otherwise they wouldn't have a reason to send them off, because, they can't have a unwed mother in amongst their rank. Can't do that. He also has clear memories of the Monts that were around as well. I think these were the women that probably helped Elfie out some when little Liir was a baby. Liir explains to Dorothy that they were at Kiamoko because of Fiyero. Dorothy asks Liir if Fiyero was his father, and Liir just shrugs. Okay, fair, because how do you even begin to answer when your entire family history is one giant secret? When it starts to rain, they take some shelter under a statue of Lurlina along the side of the road. This attracts the attention of a mountain grite who's making its home underneath the statue. The grite recognizes Elphaba's cape. He immediately becomes combative with the group, and Liir tells the grite that Elfie is dead. The grite gets salty and says to take it up with the wizard and he'll protect them. The wizard's armies will protect us, snapped Liir. The Wizard of Oz is a menace. Of course he is. A despot, a suzerain, call it what you will. The boss. And you've abetted him in his campaign to wipe out the Western resistance. This news will travel fast, my friends. Every time he said friends, it sounded less friendly. But take protections where you can. When word of the death of Elphaba Thropp spreads through these hills, you will have a very difficult time of it. I won't answer for what happens next. You've heard my advice. Heed it. Once the news of Elfie's death spread, they will be in deep shit. And one of the Vinkus tribes, the Scrow, catches up to them, and as predicted, after the mountain grite snitched, the gang gets the idea to ask them for help after the tribesmen let their displeasure with them be known. The Scrow translator listens to a plea from Liir, and he agrees to bring the message to their princess. That would be Princess Nastoya, who was the one that Liir and Elphaba met on the 100 million long year journey to Kiamoko in the last book. Dorothy is confused when she hears the translators say princess. She thinks that this is the Princess Ozma she keeps hearing about. No, no, sweetie. Liir tries to clear up this confusion by telling her how the piece of shit wizard, old Grifty McWarren, sex crimes Grifterson, deposed Ozma by kidnapping her, Princess in the Tower style. He tells them that Nanny wholeheartedly believes that Ozma would come back one day, and Elfie did not. The Scarecrow, who is not Fiyero, just FYI, says he believes in the Ozma story. Liir silently judges Scarecrow, having obviously inherited more from Elphaba than he realizes. Princess Nastoya, not Ozma, is brought to meet with the gang. She tells them that Elfie sent crows to call for help, and Nastoya sent a response, but the message clearly didn't get there in time. She lets them know that the mountain grite tattled on them about Elfie's death, and Nastoya asks them if the murderer is among them. Dorothy then makes the stupid choice to volunteer her identity. She tries to emphasize that Elfie's death wasn't so much his murder as negligent homicide. Nastoya remarks that she was impressed by Elfie's stamina, saying she didn't seem the type to die. And Dorothy replies with, "Who does?" Brilliant observation, girly pop. Now the lion has the best response to this. "Speak for yourself," muttered the lion. "I die a little bit every day, especially if there are unfriendly faces in the room." Oh my god, I love it. There's all these little one-liners, and this is like one of the things that I love about Gregory Maguire's writing is he just has these little sick birds that are everywhere in his books, and they're so funny. Some of them are kind of dark, and some of them are just so silly. Like that's kind of a dad joke. So, continuing with our story, Astoria continues her speech to Dorothy, essentially telling her, "Girl, you're in danger. You killed Elfie, and you got her shit." Liir jumps in to defend Dorothy again, emphasizing the accident part. Soya responds, saying, "It doesn't matter whether or not it was an accident, the damage is still done." I think that's a pretty astute observation. "We have collateral damage in human form walking right next to you, Dorothy." Dorothy continues and says the wizard asked her to kill Elphaba, but she was totes just there to apologize for killing Nessa and all. And Liir again pipes up and says, "Well, yeah, I was Elfie's next of kin, so yeah, I know it." And Nastoya responds to this with, okay, how? I mean, he's her son. Liir isn't really sure how because he's like, "Well, I'm not green. And he doesn't have Fiyero's skin tone. Again, that's not really how genetics work. You don't always look exactly like one parent or the other. Like, you might have traits from both of them." Besides, again, another spoiler alert, we learned that he looks like Elfie's side of the family with dark hair and fair skin. So Liir then spills the tea about Sarima and the kids and all the ants being kidnapped, and Nastoya responds with, "Even the girl?" Lear's like, "Oh, you're talking about Nor. Tell me what you know." Nastoya makes a bargain with Liir. She wants him to help her die as herself. Again, she's an Elventing disguised as a human princess. Nastoya explains that she thinks she's likely going to die soon. She's been under the protection of the Scroll for quite some time, due to the wizard being a huge piece of shit. The TLDR, she doesn't want to die in her human disguise. She wants to die as an elephant. Liir protests her request, saying he doesn't know how, and Nastoya tells him if he's related to Elfie like he says, he'll figure it the fuck out. The group leaves after that. Now, the time on the road leaves Liir a lot of time to struggle with his grief over losing Elfie. His relationship with Elphaba was not perfect by any means, but she did love him, and he loved her, and it wasn't always perfect. And it's just this Gregory Maguire is just insisting on breaking my mom heart. If it keeps going like this, I don't know what I'll do. I might just sit up in a ball and cry my eyes out for the rest of the day. I got shit to do. Liir is in his anger stage of grief. He's angry at Elfie for dying and leaving him, and he's angry because he doesn't know how he will navigate the world without her now. Oh, poor sweet baby. After 100 years on the road, the gang finally makes it to the Emerald City, and they make their way to the palace. Liir is conflicted, so he decides to stay behind while the others go in to see the wizard. Dorothy tries to get them to come with him by telling him the wizard can grant his heart desire. Yeah, oh sweetie, no. What he wants, the wizard can't give him. And in fact, the wizard is the reason that Liir doesn't have his heart's desire right now. Dorothy again tries to get him to come, comparing the wizard to Santa, a reference which nobody in the group understands. Liir recalls when Elphie asked him what he would want if the wizard could grant him a wish. His answer was a father. Oh, Liir, you sweet baby angel. The wizard is the reason that you don't have a father. But Liir decides maybe he'll go in and ask to see if he could help Princess Nastoya. Liir, putting others' needs above your own. Please tell me how you're not Elphie's son, because that's exactly something Elphie would do. When the group arrives at the palace, Dorothy introduces herself to the guards, and the wizard's ministers come downstairs to escort Dorothy and the rest of the gang, sans Liir, to see the wizard. Liir doesn't have anything else to do, so he goes to a cafe that's near the palace to wait for Dorothy and the rest of the gang. After waiting around for a few days, Liir runs into the Scarecrow again. Scarecrow is surprised to see him, and he tells Liir that maybe he wants to get out of town. But Liir is a 14-year-old orphan, and he is upset about the loss of his mother. He feels abandoned by Dorothy, and he doesn't take Scarecrow's suggestion well. No one wants me, said Liir, scoffing. No one cares to come looking for me. No one knows who I am, not even myself. Do you mean that because someone tittered that the witch was my mother, I'm in danger? Oh, you poor sweet baby angel. Scarecrow patiently explains to Liir that that is not the case at all, and he tells Liir that the wizard and the Dorothy are gone, and Glinda is going to be tasked with running the interim government. Liir remembers Elphie talking about Glinda, and she says, oh, she should clean things up okay, and Scarecrow responds with, doing good, cleaning house, takes a mighty fine broom. And with that, he pulls out Elphaba's broom and gives it to Liir. He tells him it was about to be thrown out because no one wanted it. A great metaphor for Lear's self-identity right at the moment. Liir accepted it with resignation. One more thing to carry back to the home he no longer had. Liir asks Scarecrow what he means by cleaning house. Scarecrow explains that they will need to relocate the urban poor, homeless. What a great way to show that you care about the citizens of Oz by displacing the most vulnerable among them. Great job. Yeah, of course things are still fucked up. Scarecrow explains that rumors are swirling that when Glinda is done with her temporary assignment, the head of government will transfer to a Scarecrow. Yeah, Ozians, someone needs to rise up and form a democracy like now. So Liir is led away from the palace by Scarecrow, and he tells him he misses Dorothy. Scarecrow says he doesn't think that's what actually is going on. It's the witch you miss, isn't it? I hated her too much to miss her. That's what you think. You think your own thoughts and leave me mine. He was outraged at the presumption. What did you know of the witch? Anti-witch. Elphaba Thropp. She was my witch. Poor sweet baby angel cannot bring himself to say she was my mom. Scarecrow is absolutely right. Liir doesn't miss Dorothy. He barely knew Dorothy. He misses his mom. Lear's just a little boy who misses his mommy. In this moment, the unfortunate thing, he needs his mommy to give him a hug and tell him that it's going to be okay, but his mama's not here to give him a hug. It's just here that I just start crying like a baby, and I'm like, somebody please give this poor boy a hug. And by somebody I mean you, Scarecrow. You're the one that's nearest him. Do something for fuck's sake. Give this poor baby a hug.
Your bitch crying is going to be in the background of this entire video.
Scarecrow then grabs Liir and plops him in a boat, and they float along the canals of the Emerald City. 2005, Candle is the talented kid who has to perform for her dad's Christmas party. Back in 2005, Candle is taking a break from her duty, aka being assigned to play music for a comatose Liir. Candle's bitch of a boss, Sister Cook, finds her and makes some snotty remark about how someone landed a cushy job where she can just sit all day. I mean, it's hardly cushy. It's like when you're a kid with musical talents and your parents rope you into playing piano or the flute or singing at their Christmas party. Candle doesn't say anything to defend herself to this cunt. Candle speaks Kaati, which is the Quadling's language, while she understands English, or I guess Aussie. She's not fluent enough to have a conversation. The other moths don't even bother to meet her halfway, so she gets labeled as slow when she's anything but. She's just quiet. Quiet does not equal stupid. Sister Bitchy Cook gives Candle one of the feathers of the phoenix, explaining that, oh, he showed back up and he died. And she cooked him. Ew. And she demands that Candle play a funerary song for the bird. And Candle takes the feather, and it turns out that this was exactly what the Dominican needed to give it that little extra. Now, Ms. Sister Bitchy Boss thinks that she's about to witness Candle's performance, but Candle promptly shoos her out. Like, bye, bitch. So now Candle's acting as a performer, doctor, and a nurse when she's maybe qualified for one of those things. Considering the level of piss poor care that this Montre has given so far, with sisters, doctor, and apothecary, I guess this isn't surprising. I mean, their entire medical training seems to consist of throwing random people at the problem and hoping for the best. Yeah, it's high time that Candle asked for a goddamn raise. I don't care if she's not technically getting paid. Girlfriend should be. 1995, Scarecrow and Liir discuss plans. Back in 1995, Liir and the Scarecrow are taking a boat ride through the Emerald City when Scarecrow asks him what his plans are. Liir says he has nothing to go back to even with Nanny still at Kiamo Co. Scarecrow mentions that Nor, Lear's half-sister, might be held at the notorious Emerald City prison South Stairs. While they're floating along, Scarecrow spots Glinda's house and promptly freaks the fuck out and insists that they hide. And Lear's understandably like, the fuck? Why are you making me hide? She doesn't even know who I am. Sisters Doctor and Apothecary on their Scooby-Doo mission. We're back in 2005, and Sisters Doctor and Apothecary have left on their Scooby-Doo mission to find out why the young missionaries turning up injured. On the road, they get to trucking, and we learn what a joke of an institution this Monterey really is. The sisters actually joke that Candle, being young and hot, might be able to bring Liir back to life, saying that if he saw one of them, he'd probably keel over again. Hilarious. Yeah, he needs actual medical professionals providing actual medical care, not some sexy young woman, unless said sexy young woman happens to be a trained medical professional. They're mistaking libido for, I don't know, medical ethics. I'm going to take back what I said about them being Dr. Kelso and Dr. Cox from Scrubs. Dr. Cox would be infuriated by their take. He'd probably rip them a new one.
Look, if someone had asked me just this morning, is there any way that I could have any less respect for you two geniuses, I would have said, no, that's not possible. But lo and behold, you went and pulled it off. Congratulations. The only problem is I'm fresh out of blue ribbon, so instead you're going to have to settle for a lifetime supply of my foot up your ass.
They cross paths with a water buffalo and they try to pump him for information, but he doesn't know much. He knows that there was an attempted bird congress, but that's about it. They try to get the water buffalo to give them his name, but he refuses, saying he's not interested in being converted. Later, the sisters run into the Unamata tribe on the road and they proceed to party with them all night. 1995, Liir meets Glinda. We're back in the Emerald City in 1995, and Liir and the Scarecrow are drifting along the canals, and Liir brings up Nor with the possibility that she might be in South Stairs prison. He's grieving, and he's looking for Scarecrow for some reassurance, something that he can have control or hope over, but Scarecrow just won't meet him where he is. So Liir takes matters into his own hands and decides to go see Glinda. He shows up at her townhouse in the city, but her houseboy refuses to let him in until Liir drops the magic words, "I have the witch's broom, bitches." And then he is ushered right inside. When he meets with Glinda, she starts asking him questions about the broom and how he got it. And it's clear from the text, both of them are grieving, and Glinda wants to know how Liir got a hold of Elfie's stuff. Liir stammers that he was her helper because he can't quite bring himself to say that he was her son. And at this, she collapses into tears, crying, "You knew my Elfie."
Elfie. My emotions!
She's figured out that Liir is Elfie's son, but she's too busy drowning in her own grief to say it out loud, and Liir is just annoyed. He tells Glinda about Nora and how he's searching for her, and he doesn't really want to say out loud that she's his sister and that's the reason that he's searching for her. Glinda decides she wants more proof that all of this crap that Liir has with him is actually Elfie's, so she demands that Liir burn the broom, and she proceeds to throw it on the fire. And then he begs her, "Go ahead, burn the cape too. I'll find my own way to get Nora." He says he'll serve her like he did Elfie's. Like, okay. Number one, doing household chores does not equal being a servant. Number two, you were her son, not her servant. They notice that the broom isn't burning, and Glinda tells Liir to retrieve the broom from the fire. She casts a spell on it to prevent him from getting burned. She tells Liir that this was really the only spell she's ever mastered, and she mastered it in her Tradwife era.
Because I'm better than you, I woke up extra early to prepare breakfast for my 455-month-old husband. I woke up at 3 a.m. to prepare a fresh loaf of bread for this excellent French toast. I can honestly say that life is so much better when you submit to your husband and make him breakfast. The trick here is to just make sure that breakfast is ready the second your husband opens his eyes. Otherwise, you might catch him whining over a bit of spilled milk.
Once again, he asks Glinda how he can get to Nora at South Stairs. She mentions she can probably get help from Elfie's brother, the once juvenile delinquent Shell Thropp. Barf. 2005, the sisters meet the Scrow and Princess Nastoya. Back in 2005, sisters Doctor and Apothecary wake up with a huge hangover.
You guys are in trouble.
Girlies partied a little too hard the night before. They still need to get to the bottom of the assaults, which they assume maybe to be the result of dragon attacks. They find the Scrow camp, and of course they can't help be racist as fuck when the translator comes to them by telling him, they're indirectly insulting him. They're saying, "Oh, you speak very well." He responds with, "For a Scrow, you mean."
Boom. Roasted.
Yeah. The translator went to Shoes University. Fuck you very much. The translator, whose name is Lord Shem Atikos, brings them to meet with Princess Nastoya, who's not doing very well. He only allows the sisters 10 minutes with her, and he refuses to translate anything that will upset her. When Nastoya sees they've arrived, she assumes that they're there to give her news about Liir. And the sisters confirm that, oh yes, Liir is in fact under their care. Nominally, y'all are in charge, while you leave him alone with somebody with zero medical training, so y'all can do this Scooby-Doo shit. Nastoya is on the brink of death, and she explains to the sisters that she entrusted Liir with finding a solution to allow her to die as an elephant and not in her woman disguise. The sisters break the news to Nastoya that while Liir is alive, he is comatose and in bad shape. They explain that he was also attacked by something, and they think it's the same thing that has attacked the monk. Hence why they're trotting around Oz playing detective while their patient is in the hands of, again, somebody with zero medical training. Nastoya tells them that she thinks that the attacks might have been at the behest of the Unamana, the neighboring tribe that the sisters just partied with, but the sisters quickly explain that they know it wasn't them because they've partied really hard with them. Sister Apothecary tries to make herself a little useful and tries to attend to Nastoya, but she hangs back when she sees that Nastoya's maids are attending to her. Sister Doctor then gets in a snit about it. 2005, Candle's backstory. Back at the Monterey, Candle is alone with her silent comatose roommate, and this gives her some time to reflect. We learn that she was left at the Monterey by an uncle who told her he assumed that she would get pregnant soon, because I don't know, women can't possibly figure out how to enjoy sex without getting pregnant. Candle's uncle gave her the excuse that he couldn't possibly take care of her and a baby as his reason for dumping her at the Monterey. He told her to stay for a year and she'd have the Dominion all to herself. Lovely. Yeah, and then there's the whole backstory about how she found the Dominion from a vendor, and she thought she was in love with the guy, so she banged him. Then she realized she liked the instrument way more than the guy. Really Pop got a sweet instrument and some booty out of the deal, so good for her. Candle's not ashamed of her sexuality. She knows what she wants and she doesn't make a moral crisis out of it. Now, the book explains to us that the quadling people are a little more freer in that way, but honestly, you can still feel that same purity culture judgment that's baked in. So it's here that I realized that I needed to stop and talk about the concept of purity culture. Now, purity culture in and of itself is actually a really broad topic, but the simplest definition I can give you is purity culture is a belief system that is often tied to conservative religious traditions, though not exclusively, that treats sexual abstinence as the core of moral worth. Now, purity culture teaches a few core ideas. Number one, that sex is impure unless it happens within marriage. Any sex before or outside of marriage pollutes the soul. And anything that isn't cis heterosexual sex is sinful and or morally corrupt. Now, in practice, this means that girls and AFAB people are told that their bodies are dangerous and shameful and a threat to men's spiritual or inner lives. Now, because women and AFAB people are blamed for the thoughts and actions of men, they're instructed to cover up so boys and men aren't tempted by their bodies. This is also how purity culture harms AMAB people. So purity culture teaches them that they are untrustworthy and replaces healthy communication with shame and self-policing. Boys and men are taught that they are naturally lustful and predator-like creatures that can't control themselves. Now, the result is men's sexuality is treated as inevitable, while women and AFAB people's sexuality is pathologized. Now, often in purity culture, real sex education is replaced with abstinence-only messaging that emphasizes sexual abstinence until marriage. And abstinence-only programs not only fail to discuss sex and sexuality as a whole, they also omit crucial discussions of consent, safety, bodily autonomy, and healthy desire. When you fail to teach young people these critical concepts, you remove their ability to identify things like coercion, grooming, or abuse, because they literally do not have the language to understand what's happening to them. Now, it's important to point out that while purity culture is frequently associated with conservative spaces, its logic is baked into Western culture as a whole. And it shows up everywhere, even in secular settings. Now, some examples include school and workplace dress codes that overwhelmingly target women and girls' bodies. In the United States, states replacing comprehensive sex ed programs with abstinence-only programs and cultural assumptions that women must regulate their bodies so that men don't have to regulate theirs. It would be irresponsible of me if I also didn't point out that purity culture is especially dangerous for queer people, because purity culture's entire framework is built on a rigid heterosexual norms. And because of this, anyone who is outside of that mold, including LGBTQIA people, are framed as impure simply for existing. Now, coming back to our story, so when I discuss what are implications of purity culture in this Wicked verse Oz from Gregory Maguire, I am going to give you some examples of things in the text that I've seen. And these are both from Wicked and Son of a Witch. So, at Shiz, girls needing chaperones while boys roam freely. Bach even spies on girls undressing in their dorm rooms. Frex blaming Nessa Rose's disabilities on Melina's sexual looseness. Elphaba being raised by a father who sees women's bodies as spiritually toxic. Elphaba presumably hiding her pregnancy to avoid judgment. Elphaba's own sexual and physical insecurities that are rooted in shame. Candle being dumped at the Montree for having sex. And Nanny shaming Melina for her sexuality. Now, hopefully this gives you a good solid foundation for understanding that and identifying purity culture. I'll link my sources in the description. Especially with the uncle dropping her off at the Montree because she might get pregnant. Lord help us. Society wants women to be desirable, but the second they own it, everyone clutches their pearls. Candle doesn't play that game. 1995, Liir runs into an old nemesis. Back in 1995, Glinda needs to find Liir some clean clothes. she gets one of her host boys to lend him some clothes before they head out to the palace. On the way to the palace, Glinda tries to take on like a motherly type of role with Liir, but it comes off as more like the cool aunt act. And she asks him if he's scared, but he doesn't really answer, so she just keeps talking. She rambles about how Elphaba once dragged her to the palace to meet the wizard, and you can tell she's circling all her regrets in her mind, like mostly her regrets about her friendships with Elphaba and possibly things that she said in the last book that she can't take back now. Glinda has obviously put two and two together and knows that Liir is Elphaba's son, hence why she's trying to be the cool aunt and comfort him. But eventually the conversation dries up. They sit in silence and we see that they're both grieving. Glinda is mourning the loss of her closest friend and, let's be real, her biggest crush, and beating herself up for the way that she may have carried herself in that friendship. Liir is mourning his mother, even while doubting the truth of that relationship. He is still mourning the stability and the connection that she represented, and he's grieving the loss of answers to questions that he doesn't think he can get now. They make it to the palace and they meet up with chicken shit, piece of shit, constitutional rights violator extraordinaire General Cherrystone, the same douchebag who kidnapped Sarima, her sisters, and Nor and Irji by straight up violating their Third Amendment rights by illegally quartering soldiers on the property, and then their Fourth Amendment rights against illegal search and seizures while Elfie was out of town. Because he's a fucking chicken shit. Fuck this guy. And you know what? Please find yourself a copy of the Constitution. You could probably find a copy at your local library. This is just something I bought at Barnes & Noble. When they approach him, he's clearly slacking. He's sitting with his feet up on his desk and his sword shoved in a potted plant. And the second he sees them coming, he pops up and pretends, I wasn't just slacking off. Nope, not me. I'm sure Glinda's gonna buy that. Liir knows exactly who he is and exactly how much he sucks, so he confronts him. Now, for somebody who swears up and down that he's not related to Elfie, he sure inherited her attitude. Meanwhile, Glinda strolls up all casual like, oh, you've met? Boring. Actually, she says, how droll. But that's just fancy talk for boring. Liir fires back with essentially saying, oh, you fucking know who I am, you fucking asshole. You kidnapped my stepmom, her sisters, and my brother and sisters, you fuckwad. Quote by me. Then General Fuckwad has the audacities to clutch his pearls and say, I didn't kidnap them. I was protecting them. Promise. Then Liir says exactly what we're all thinking. And how well did you protest them? Liir is pissed at Glinda, but Glinda hits him with, yeah, this guy sucks, I know, but guess what? I am in charge here, and if I say he has to help you, then he has to help you. Liir then asks Cherrystone what happened to Sarima and the others, but Cherrystone just shrugs and says, everyone dies. It's a matter of where and how. What a fucking piece of shit. Liir has no other choice but to let it go, so he asks Glinda what she wants him to do with the clothes she loaned him, and it's at this she gets emotional and tells him that she reminds her of Elfie. Liir, buddy, that's your sign. Her college BFF is literally spelling it out for you. Liir brushes her off, saying he doesn't have Elfie's talent, but Glinda doesn't let him dismiss himself that easily, and she tells him that Elfie was brave, and that's the part of her he carries. Tonight on Dateline, let's go rogue. Back in 2005, Candle proves that she's the only person in this entire institution with any goddamn common sense. She sees that Liir is slipping, and realizing that she needs more medical care that she could possibly give him, she tries to get one of the senior mods to step in. But before she can do so, fucking Jackal shows up. Oh yeah, fucking Jackal, the creepy ass crone that's been stalking Elphaba and this family for at least a full book now. She shows up and literally traps Candle alone in the room with Liir. But before she does this, she cryptically tells her, there's no one else here. Do what needs to be done. This poor girl is now terrified. This rogue Mott just kidnapped her alone with a coma patient. Candle at least tries to get the attention of someone else to help her, but nobody else sees her or hears her. I'm really shocked that this institution has not been sued into the ground with all this bullshit. And now it's a goddamn crime scene. Candle, girl, time to start documenting all this shit and haul it to the prosecutor's office. 1995. Sex pest Shell Thropp enters our story, and I try not to vomit. I liked him better when he was...
Sir not appearing in this film.
Back in 1995, General Fuckwad Cherrystone and Liir are alone. Cherrystone is just sitting on his ass, slacking and reading a newspaper, pretending Liir isn't there. And here Liir begins to doubt what it is he came here to do. Oh, Liir, you sweet baby angel, do not doubt yourself. This guy sucks ass. After waiting around forever, the business day finally concludes, and then an even bigger douchebag makes his appearance. Enter Shell Thropp.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Elphaba's youngest sibling, only boy in the Thropp family, and the golden child, whom Melina died giving birth to. He waltzes into the room like his shit don't stink. Cherrystone makes his introductions and fucks off, and then Liir and former juvenile delinquent Shell go on their merry way. Shell leads Liir to the South Stairs prison. On the way there, Liir tries to strike up a conversation with the person who is his uncle. Somewhere Elphie is like, oh, fuck me. He sucks. They all suck. He asks Shell about his sisters, and he asks if Nessa Rose was really a martyr. Shell tells Liir that Nessa had enough faith in the family for everyone and their dog, and then Elphie was a staunch atheist. Shell, you realize that you are talking to her son, your nephew, you dipshit. I think he knows that already. In fact, I think he knows her better than you do. So fuck off. Shell then says, I don't want to talk about my sisters. They make it to the South Stairs boundary, and South Stairs is not just a prison, but it seems to just be operated as its own independent underground city. No one pays much attention to the people in here, so they just fend for themselves. Liir asks Shell if he's going to lead him to Nor, and Shell says he's going to take him to the registrar's office, but he has to make a few stops first. Shell's asking Liir if he can stop and see patients. Just FYI, Shell is not a doctor, nor any kind of trained medical professional in any capacity. Shell makes the first of his stops and makes Liir wait for him. An ape spots Liir hanging around and he asks him what he's doing, and Liir tells him that he's with Shell. And the ape starts to lecture Liir, telling him that he needs permission from the Undermayor to be down there, and then conveniently Shell reappears to tell Ape that's exactly what they were doing. After a few stops, they finally reach Undermayor Chide. Chide and Shell chat away. They're gossiping about Glinda and the state of things upstairs. Chide explains to Liir that Shell is basically his Oz TikTok. He feels him in on all the upstairs drama. He also seems to think that he's Shell's son, and Liir promptly corrects him, and Chide says he thought he caught a resemblance. Liir asks Chide about Nor, and Chide's just like, Shell asks Chide to hurry up, to which Chide makes some kind of snotty remark that some widow would be aching for his attention. And this is where Liir puts two and two together and realizes that Shell is a fucking sex pest. Liir is incensed, but Shell's just like, and he fucks off. 2005, sisters are told by Nastoya to get Liir while poor Candle is panicking. In 2005, the sisters are still hanging out with the Skrull, and Lord Ottakos is trying his best to get these damn bitches to leave. But Princess Nastoya asks to see them again. She tells them again to go get Liir since, he made her a promise and all a decade ago. And she refers to Liir as the witch's boy, and the monks are all, are you sure? Nastoya essentially tells them, bitches please, he had her cape and her broom. What the fuck else do you want? Nastoya thanks the sisters for their kindness and asks them how they can perform works in the name or the not name of the unnamed god, telling them that his agents belittle us so. Sister Doctor tells Nastoya that the unnamed god doesn't descend from the Emperor or vice versa. The unnamed god, whatever they may say in the Emerald City these days, is still in essence unnamed. We have as much right to work in his name as anyone else. Hardly seems worth the bother to believe, murmured Princess Nastoya. Still, life itself seems patently fantastic, and we believe in life, so I'll let the matter drop. Back at the Monterey, Candle is still trapped alone in the room with Liir because, again, this institution is a joke, and the people nominally in charge of Lear's medical care have fucked off elsewhere, and the rest of the staff aren't bothering to, keep anybody safe, while Jackal is out here playing puppet master and corners Candle and Liir into something that neither of them agreed to. No one's consenting on any level here. This is manipulation dressed up as prophecy. Fucking Jackal is fucking creepy as fuck. Yeah, Jackal is now the facilitator of a crime, but you know what? The victims will have both left by the time the months that are actually in charge of Liir's care return. 1995, South Steers Prison. Why Oz needs prison reform yesterday. Back in 1995, Liir is still trying to get Chide to give him the information about Nor and her whereabouts. Chide has an assistant, an elf named Jibbity. So Jibbity and Chide lead Liir to Asau, who informs Liir that Nor is actually gone, having escaped a few days earlier with some dead pig carcasses. Gross, but Girly Pop is damn resourceful. In one of the most horrifying scenes in the book, Chide has Jibbity commit infanticide against one of the sow's piglets. Like, what the actual fuck? Liir is devastated by witnessing this cruelty and by just barely missing out on seeing Nora again, and he finally snaps. He runs away and gets out of there the only way he can, by Elfie's brew. Part 2, The Service. 1995, Liir enters the Home Guard. Not sure what to do next. Liir goes to Glinda's house and finds that she's out of town. He doesn't have anywhere else to go, so he heads to a nearby church and he meets a group of pickpockets. Now we've gone from Prison Break to Oliver in the same story.
Please, sir, I want some more.
The kids hang out in the front of the church during a service, only to be chased away by an usher, and Liir tries to offer services as a houseboy, but he's also chased away. He hangs around with the gang of kids for a few days before deciding to enlist in the Home Guard. At least there he'll get a hot meal and a roof over his head. He strikes up with a friendship with a boy who tells him how to sign up and warns him not to say he's an orphan. Sometime after Liir enlists, he runs into the human rights violator-in-chief chicken shit himself, General Cherrystone. Blech. Liir tells him what happened to Nora, but all Cherrystone can do is bitch about Glinda. Lovely. At this point, the story fully shifts to Lear's life in the Home Guard. They bring in a union minister to preach to the boys, and Liir actually feels moved until he asks a few questions and accidentally wonders out loud that maybe escaping Kiamoko at the cost of Elphaba's death got the unnamed god's attention. Now, the minister immediately freaks the hell out, and Lear's like, okay, never mind then. After being in the Home Guard for a few months, Liir is called to the palace for ceremonial duty. Glinda and her beard, her husband, Sir Joffrey, are being honored for her service. Why we need to honor the man for what the woman did is beyond me. I don't know. Liir is one of 6 boys chosen for detail: 2 blondes, 2 brunettes, and 2 raven-haired boys. Apparently, symmetry matters when you're staffing your entourage. At the ceremony, Glinda doesn't seem to recognize Liir, which just makes him feel even more isolated. Growing up in a house full of women, he's never felt comfortable opening up to other men, so he mostly keeps to himself in the Home Guard. When a fellow Home Guard member invites him home for the holiday, Liir politely declines. Oh, you sweet baby angel. Yeah, Gregory Maguire is once again just breaking my mom heart into a million pieces. I just keep wanting somebody just to give this poor little boy a hug and just tell him it's okay. I'm really not sure what makes me cry more, watching Encanto with my kids or reading this book. I'm really not sure because they all make me cry. Gelfie, the Next Generation. Liir meets Trism. Liir is in the service for a few more years when he learns he's going to be shipped out to somewhere top secret. Yeah, more likely just more military abuses. The superiors tell the boys they get 1 night on the town, but they need to be back by morning call or else. Out on the town, Liir goes to a bar, and who does he run into but Jibbity from South Stairs. Liir asks Jibbity how he got out, since apparently no one escaped South Stairs. Jibbity explains that he got out because he ratted on Under Mayor Chide. Now he's working at the bar like a stand-up citizen. He offers to buy Liir a drink and asks if he ever learned anything about what happened to Nor. Liir replies that he learned how to mind his own business. There's that classic Thropp sarcasm. It's cunning and understated. Jibbity should feel honored that Liir even wasted the effort to roast him. Jiminy takes the hint and makes himself scarce while Liir heads to the bathroom. On his way back, he runs into the kid that helped him enlist, except now he's a grown-up, a little cute blonde twink, and he flirts with Liir. Imagining Liir had approached him intentionally, the soldier said, "Oh, it's you." "Well, it is," said Liir. "All these years, and never thanked you for the skinny on how to get in. If you're looking for advice on how to get out, I'm afraid it's too late now," said the fellow. He was sleek and rangy, with hair the color of clarified butter, swept long across the brow and clipped at the nape. Even in this welter and swelter, he was wearing an officer's code stripes on the shoulders of his smart civilian tight coat. A modern menacier by the look of it. "Liir," said Liir. "Some do. They can't help themselves," said the petty officer. "Liir," he explained. "How much have you had to drink?" "Not too much enough of?" The twink introduces himself as Trism Bond Cavlish, a rich boy twink. Liir avoids asking Trism any questions about his personal life for fear that Trism will do the same because he's not ready to answer any questions about himself. He instead asks him about what he does in the service. Trism tells Liir that he does animal husbandry, and Liir isn't quite sure what that means. Through the noise of the bar, Liir couldn't tell if he said animal or animal, the sentient or non-sentient creature. "Training for military uses," said Trism at last. "Are you slow or are you falling in love with me?" Ha. Oh boy, Trism's got game. He's got more game than a lot of these love interests that we will meet. His game is hot boy is drunk. Ask him if he's falling in love with you. Wink, wink. I mean, it's better than Fiyero's game, which is convince hot girl to let me into her apartment after stalking her and keep hanging around until she cries one day and then let her pin you to the wall and make out. And then there's one interest whose idea of flirting is to pedantically skirt around the point, get huffy and butthurt, almost make a move, and then get cock blocked after secretly pining for 100 pages. Liir is wasted, and Trism decides to be a gentleman and escort Liir outside to get him a ride home. Just as he's about to get Liir an Uber home, who should show up to ruin the moment? Shell Thropp.
And I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Shell sees Liir and is all like, "Hey, I wondered what happened to you." Liir says he's been looking for Nor. Duh. And then Shell reveals that, "Oh, wouldn't you know? Nor did turn up somewhere, but he's not sure where." Meanwhile, Trism is politely trying to leave the situation. Shell is annoying as fuck, and he offers Liir and Trism his cab while he does something, scrounging up power or be annoying to somebody else, maybe some sex workers. He seems to imply that Liir and Trism can go get some state secrets from some soldiers, and then Trism gets offended. "Sir," snapped Trism, "I am an officer of the Home Guard, and I'm the wicked snitch of the West," said Shell. "Oh well, I was trying to be useful. Not my strong suit. Driver, an hour, and don't have too much yourself. I don't want to end up in hospital. I'm to be back at the palace by midnight for fun and frolic, if I can pay with the coin they require." Liir asks about Nor again. "Am I your personal secretary?" "I don't know. Was it Colwyn Grounds in Munchkinland?" "Couldn't have been. That's a hostile state," intervened Trism, buffering up. Ooh, Trism's getting ready for a fight, y'all. Malibu Beach! This scene is laid out so well here. He's just laid out the tension with like surgical precision. Shell sucks, and Trism is showing off for his man. Shell finally lets Liir know that Nora was spotted in shiz before he ducks away and finally fucks off. The moment having officially been killed, Trism gets Liir an Uber ride home, and then Liir spots some writing on the wall. "Elfie lives, Ozma lives, the wizard lives, and then everyone lives but us." Seeing this, Liir sharpens his resolve to find his sister. So the next morning, Liir is packing his things when he remembers what Shell said about Nor, but he doesn't have much time to think about it before he's got to head out. While the company is making their way out of the city, they stop in a warehouse district and hang out around an abandoned warehouse. Most likely, it's the warehouse with the studio apartment where he was conceived. It's a nice sunny day, so he leans back against the wall of the abandoned warehouse and soaks up the sun. And then he has an out of body experience. The warmth of the walls behind him, the pleasure of being between moments of his own history, his skittery mind indulged in a waking dream. His thoughts wandered up cracked plaster walls of the cornhouse. It was as if he were looking down at himself from the window on the second level. That's me down there, that young soldier, anthracite haired, trim, smart enough, having his moment of rest. How handsome a figure he managed to seem from this vantage point. Shoulders acceptably broad, the wind-blown hair on his scalp, his knee thrust forward. A soldier doing the work of the Empire. A good guy. Then the focus of his attention backed up. For that fragment of an instant in which a reverie implies eternity, and Liir had the sense that the young soldier at street level was out of sight again and out of mind, and the two people who might have been looking out at him from some private eyrie had turned their attention back to each other lovingly. Yeah, buddy, keep doubting your parentage. I'm pretty sure this is your sign, bro. Must be the sun. Must be the beer? Filthy, slutty mind he had after all. Swaddling country, colonialism in Oz. On the road, the crew stops at a Monterey, and Liir wonders if this was the one that he was born at, or as he puts it, at the place where he and Elfie originated from. They learn their destination is Quadling Country, and Lear's surprised, since Quadling Country has been the victim of environmental catastrophe and systematic genocide at the hands of none other than the Wizard of Oz, aka Grifty, McWar, and sex crimes and genocide architect Grifterson. The wizard ordered the swamps to be drained to mine rubies, and the remaining people were left to scrape by, and the people who escaped were left to scrape by in menial labor across the Emerald City. The Home Guard boys' chatter fills in some of the details. Why Quadling Country? When the Seventh Steer paused to make camp, the soldiers shared what they remembered about the southernmost province of Oz. Quadling Country was your basic mudland, an undifferentiated waste of bogs and badlands, once widely populated by the Squelt folk, a March people known for their ruddy complexion and fishy odor. Hadn't they mostly been eradicated when the wizard drained the wetlands in the hunt for swamp rubies? In the Emerald City, you could see Quadling families from time to time. They were clanny, silent in public, and making little effort to integrate. In the Emerald City, they'd cornered the market on trash remover. All the funnier. Trash hauling trash. Right here, the colonialist language that's used really jumps out of me. So what happened? The wizard took over this land for its resources, exploited the people, drove them out of their homes, and then when they're forced to move elsewhere, not by choice, but because they have no other choice, they're treated as less than human and forced into menial labor. It's the same story, whether it's 18th century America, whether it's King Leopold Congo bleeding the people for rubber, South Africa's blood diamonds, or the Central American banana republics. It's just always the same. The wizard's going to try and claim that, he united a fractured nation, but really he just exploited the people for whatever he needed. The irony is, when those same people flee to the country that caused their suffering because they have more opportunities there, they're demeaned for it. Even with the wizard gone, the exploitation continues, and honestly, I highly doubt things were really better under the rule of the Ozma. Kings and queens don't get deposed for no reason. And in the last book, I compared the story of the missing baby Ozma to Anastasia Romanoff. Now, if you remember, Anastasia was the youngest daughter of Tsar Nicholas II and Tsarina Alexandra, née Alex of Hesse, of Russia. During World War I, I can't remember the exact date, but the people had had enough, and it really had been building for years. Things were bad already from the moment of Nicholas's coronation, when hundreds of peasants were trampled to death. Codigna Field, while the royal family just partied nearby while nothing happened. Now, the people rose up and Nicholas abdicated, and the rebel leaders eventually executed the whole family. Yeah, it was brutal, but it didn't come out of nowhere. And conditions at this point were so dire that other crowned heads of Europe, most of them were Nicholas's cousins, mind you, publicly distanced themselves during this fall, hoping their own heads would stay attached. My hypothesis is that really something similar happened in Oz prior to this. There was a drought that we know happened, and that drought led to unrest. Unrest bred distrust. And the wizard just swooped in conveniently to dispose the Ozma line, probably saying, "Yeah, I'll make it better, yeah," and then never actually making things better, just more of the same in a different name. Now, during his downtime, Liir asks his buddy Bernie and Ansonby about defensive animal husbandry in the Emerald City, clearly angling for information on his crush, or Twinkie boy Trism. They tell Liir they've heard that it's dragons, and of course, Trism comes up in the conversation. Now, according to them, Trism's good at his job, but he's a bit uppity and remote. They spill the tea that according to Trism, somebody allegedly got the idea of dragons from Elphie and her flying monkeys in Kiamoko. I think Elphie would be pissed to learn that her life's work has been co-opted for more fascism. When they finally arrive in Quadling country, Jerrystone explains to the men that their job will be keeping the public order. This is colonialist language for keeping the people that still live there compliant for the uses of their colonizers. So the crew is stationed there for about 3 to 4 years, and during that time, Liir is mostly in charge of paperwork for General Cherrystone because Cherrystone is a blowhard. Cherrystone butters Liir up with gifts he gets from the EC and spills his personal tea, trying to groom Liir into being his bosom buddy. Yeah, Liir is this douche lord subordinate, and he's just being groomed to keep this dickwad's facade of himself up. One day, Cherrystone asks Liir what he hears from home while they're sitting and smoking. Liir doesn't volunteer much. Cherrystone mentions his daughters by insulting them, saying he wished that he had a son like Liir. Yeah, I have 2 boys, and I do get questions like, "Oh, you have 2 boys. Do you want a girl?" No way. Well, number 1, I don't want to get pregnant again. And number 2, if I did get pregnant again, I would have another boy because that's just the way these things go. Anyway, "You're a good lad, shaping up. Don't think I don't notice." Commander Cherrystone closed his eyes. "I would have been happy for a son like you, but my fond Wendina only gave me girls." "You must miss them, sir." "They're girls," he said neutrally, and his point was beyond Liir. "They're girls, so why bother?" Or "They're girls, so why bother?" Or "They're girls, so of course I miss them. Don't be daft." So Liir decides to confront Cherrystone about how he was the architect of his biggest childhood trauma, ripping his stepmom, half siblings, and his step aunts away from Kiamoko under the guise of bullshit. Cherrystone still sucks and all but blows him off. Liir continues to press him and asks about Nor. And Cherrystone admits to Nor being brave and said she couldn't quite possibly know what was up. Liir just sits there and thinks to himself, "Broseph, she was a child." Do you remember seeing Nor, the little girl? She wasn't a tyke, she was growing up. I saw her, she was brave, if that's what you're asking. Quite possibly she didn't understand what was going on. Quite possibly, what a phrase. Of course she didn't understand it, how could she? She'd been raised on a mountaintop by a widowed mother and half a dozen spinster aunts. What could she know of military maneuvers? Liir says he still thinks of Nor, and Cherrystone just tosses out some vague line about youth and honor. Yeah, way to provide a non-answer, dude. Broseph either knows exactly what he did, or he just doesn't care. Or the system's just cushioned him too well to make him ever feel fucking guilty. He offers Liir a promotion to minor menacier, probably just to shut him up. But for Liir, it's a turning point. He's starting to question the machine that he's serving, even if outwardly he's still the perfect little soldier. Meanwhile, the palace is starting to get annoyed with Lear's crew, and they start demanding that they execute their original mission. One day, General Cherrystone mentions a village called Bangda that has a bridge that the citizens are charging a toll for anyone to use. How dare they? Now, the problem seems to be that the Emerald City wants a cut of that money, and they've started to threatening to tax the money. Cherrystone enlists Liir to do some reconnaissance for him, and after this, the citizens start handing over a chunk of the money they earn from the tolls. After the company starts enforcing the tolls without the real consent of the citizens, but this isn't enough for the government of Oz in the Emerald City. General Cherrystone gives an order to burn the bridge and, by extension, the city. Cherrystone receives barrels of tar and orders Liir and his men to paint the edges of the bridge with it. Liir asks, "Well, what about the citizens? The nearest city is 20 minutes away." And Cherrystone's response is, "They can jump in the water." Liir points out that this water is infested with eels and gators, because this is Florida. Liir follows orders and tells his men to do the work, saying it's got something to do with a kidnapped viceroy, and he also advises the ones with girlfriends in the area to visit them, ticket an alibi, just in case. So that night, when the mission starts, one of the men says this all seems a little sus. Liir doesn't really argue, just tells them to keep doing their thing. The men light the fire and chaos ensues as the citizens flee their burning home. Liir sees a couple with a little girl and they toss her into the water, which seems to be the only possible escape for her. Eels and alligators be damned. He orders the men back to the barracks and then searches for the little girl himself, but he can't find her. Back at the government house, which is serving as the base of operations, Liir realizes the men who didn't join the mission are still there instead of with their girlfriends. They'll be the first targets for retaliation. While the men celebrate with a job well done, Liir quietly gathers his things and leaves. Liir leaves the home card and heads for Kiamoko. Tip, is it? Out on the road, he chooses to head to the last place he knew his home, Kiamoko. While he's on the road, Liir runs into an elderly woman and a little boy whom Liir assumes to be her grandson. The woman's driving a four-horned cow down the road, and Liir overhears the grandma calling her grandson by the name of Tip. I feel like that name should be significant in some way. Yeah, no clue. Moving on. Liir stops and asks Tip and his grandma about the cow. After some back and forth, Tip suggests to his grandma that she sell him to Liir. And Liir responds, I don't buy children, said Liir. He looked the boy in the eye. I can't save anyone. You have to save yourself. Tip bit his lower lip, keeping his mouth shut, but his eyes stayed trained on Lear's. The rebuke seemed to Liir to say, you have to save yourself? And what proof of that are you, soldier? The grandma mentions buying Lear's broom instead, but he moves on. On the road, Liir gives himself a haircut, which he doesn't do it very well, and his hair is implied to be untamable, which could, it's his personality at this point. Maybe he's got a little curl to his hair. He has no idea how to handle his curly hair. It's like, bro, get a wide tooth comb and not a brush, and stop cutting your hair with an army-issued knife. Use a t-shirt to dry your hair and stretch the curls to define them, or at the very least, just invest in a diffuser. Liir reaches a place in the Vinkus at the edge of the mountains with a cluster of lakes, and he names the place Netherhow. He decides to stop and take a nap there, and he has another out-of-body experience. He sees himself with his tragic haircut napping against a tree, and then he sees an old guy in a purple cape walking around with the book. Now, that book, of course, is the Grimoire. Liir wakes up and keeps moving, and he takes another 2 months to reach Kiamoko on foot. When he reaches the house, it's in disrepair, and he finds Chistery there, who is talking very well now, and he greets Liir with a wet, sloppy kiss on the hand. Kiamoko, you reunited with Nanny. Liir goes into the house and finds Nanny in bed, still alive and still kicking. She's not in the greatest shape, and her mental faculties fade in and out. And Liir takes this opportunity to ask Nanny about Elphie. You're the boy. Grown up some, she said. Not enough. I see, but there's time. Liir, he reminded her, he had to work fast while she was attending. Nanny, do you remember when we came here, Elphaba and I? She screwed up her face and settled on an answer almost at once. I do not, Liir, because I came later. You were already here when I got here. So Nanny then goes on to tell Liir about his grandmother, Melina, and tell him what a hoe she was. He says, saucy little thing got around the parish, if you know what I mean. I think he knows what you mean. There's no need to explain it more. He finally asks Nanny if Elphie was his mother, and she goes on to tell him about the Monterey and Elphie being catatonic, and she didn't remember, blah, 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 blah. But it was quite possible, blah, 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 blah. So Nanny rolls her eyes a bit, implying that she knows Elphie wasn't really telling her the whole truth. So he asks her, why didn't she ask about me and her? I suppose she thought the answers there didn't matter. There you were. One way or the other, it hardly signified. It matters to me. She was a good woman, our Elphie, but she wasn't a saint, said Nanny both tartly and protectively. Leave her to her failings. Not everyone is cut out to be the warm, motherly type. If she thought I might be her child, Wouldn't she have mentioned a possible father? She never did what another person might. You remember that. Now, I did know that fellow named Fiyero once upon a time, and you don't look much like him if that's your game. Frankly, you could more easily pass for a child of Nessa Rose, Elphaba's sister, the Wicked Witch of the East, as they called her, behind her back. If you were Elfie's, there'd be the green skin, wouldn't there? It's a puzzle. Oh, Liir, you sweet baby angel, what more do you need? You have been told by two separate people that you look like both of Elfie's siblings. That tells me, Frex told Elfie, oh, you've become your mother, so Melina's genes are the strongest ones. Yeah, and then Nanny brought up Fiyero, unprompted, mind you. I think that's your sign, buddy. I mean, what do you want? Do you want Nanny to text Shell and get a 23andMe DNA test? You could compare your mitochondrial DNA to Shell's. You both have a common female relative, so yeah, that's something I learned from watching true crime documentaries. The mitochondrial DNA is passed through the female lines. Editing me here. Unfortunately, I discovered that this is when my audio decided to take a crap out on me. It's only for this section, so we're just gonna redo this here. Nanny and Liir talk some more. She shares that Chistry and the Red Windmill townsfolk look after her. The Arjiki women in particular bring her food, and in exchange she participates in their community life. This totally disproves Sarima's old claim that the townsfolk just wanted her kids' heads. I can admit, maybe they wanted Manic's head since he was a little fucking psychotic freak and all, but the rest, no. This just proves it. These are community-oriented people, and they treat people that they view as part of their community with kindness and generosity. And before finishing the conversation, Liir asks if he can have the grimoire if he finds it among Elfie's things, and this is when Nanny's mind slips. "Where would she be?" said Nanny. "Where would she be? Where is she? Elfie!" she suddenly bellowed. "Why don't you come when I call you? After all I did for you all my life, and for your slut of a mother before you. Elfie!" The start of Liir's hero's journey in the ordinary world. One day, an injured swan hides under the port. She's been attacked by something, and she won't say what. Chistry tells Liir that the swan is a princess, and she's on her way to the conference of the birds. And before she dies, she insists that Chistry go in her place and give the opening speech. Chistry says he doesn't have the stamina to travel that far, and Liir asks him what Elfie would do again and again and again until Chistry finally gets so annoyed with Liir that he snaps. Damn it. Where's that book? Turns out it was just behind me on the shelf. I'm so goofy, goodness gracious. "Leave me be! How would I know what she'd do? She always liked you better than me," Liir snapped at him. "Frankly, Liir, I'd rather be cleaning the chamber pots than having this chat." So Chistry storms off, and then Liir notices that he hasn't denied anything. Weasley beast. "Oh, Liir, you sweet baby angel." The affection that Elfie would have had for Chistry wouldn't be the same as what she would have for you. Chistry was her pet, you were her child. And I know that she was not great at showing that she loved Liir, but she doesn't mean that she didn't. She just wasn't good at showing it in ways that he would want. And holding your own baby isn't the same as like holding a pet. And I'm not saying that people don't love their pets. I am a dog mom and a human mom, and trust me, I get it. But it's different. So after this, Liir finally gets the courage to go up to Elfie's tower, and he goes through all her shit looking for the grimoire. He doesn't find it, but he finds a pair of Fiyero's old boots under lock and key. And in the boots, he finds a drawing of Noor with an inscription in her handwriting that reads, "Noor by Fiyero. This is me, Noor, by my father, F, before he left." Oh my gosh. Is that just not the most heartbreaking thing? Not compared to the other 10 million heartbreaking things that have been in this novel. So he hunts around some more and he finds a mirror, and it's not just any mirror, it's the mirror that Turtleheart gave Elfie as a toddler, and the one that Mr. Boss gave back to her in the last book. The one with the mirror sex tape. I guess Oz TMZ hasn't gotten a hold of it. No trash reality TV for the Thropp family. Oh darn. Liir picks up the mirror and he sees Fiyero and Elphaba getting it on in the apartment in the Emerald City. You know, because everybody just needs to see the exact date and time and place that they were conceived. Otherwise it doesn't count.
Oh, my eyes! My eyes! Baby! Oh, okay! It's okay! It's okay! No! They're doing it!
Then he sees Elfie flipping through the grimoire and then summoning the broom and taking off into the sky. And after this experience, Liir chooses to go to the bird conference, much to Chistery's surprise. You've no need to take this on yourself, he repeated. She would, he said. You aren't her. You can't be and shouldn't try. Try to be her or try to be me. There is a difference, of course there is. But I've got the broom, haven't I? So who else should do it? Chistery shrugged. So Liir heads out on the broom and he's in the air when the next thing he knows, he's attacked by the dragons. He at first thinks it's just a pack of predator birds when he sees them off in the distance, but then when he gets up close, he realizes really quickly he was wrong. He sees the dragon's talons and then their beaks and teeth. Oh, well, they're ripping off his clothes and right before he falls off the broom. Part 3, The Emperor Apostle. Candle and Liir in the present. The past and the present finally meet in the same timeline. Candle and Liir officially meet when Liir is conscious, and since he can speak Kaati, Liir can actually talk to her like a human being. What a concept, who'd have thunk it? They're holed up in an old apple cidery, and they talk about things, and he asks her, why did you rescue me? She doesn't answer, but the real answer is, well, technically, Oatsy Manglehand rescued you and brought you to the Monterey, and I was forced to sit to play music to you and tend to you while the Monts, who were technically in charge of your care, ran off to play detective because the Monterey is a joke of an institution. He asked her why they left the Monterey, and she tells him that Jackal said that he'd be hunted for reasons.
Sure, Jan.
So in the meantime, they bond, and Candle tells them about her life prior to the Monterey. Candle tells him that she grew up in the Ovals, one of the major cities in the Quadling area. Mom left, then Dad left, that she was raised by her uncle. And it turns out she can read the present, meaning she's not seeing the far future. It's more like she's just reading the next page before everyone else gets there. He tells her that she cared for him beautifully, and she just shrugs. You cared beautifully for me. Liir noted the rue in his voice. I remember what it was like to fall through in the air and see the ground rush up with speed you can't imagine. It was all a brown blur of wind and earth. I couldn't have saved you if you had fallen very far, said Candle. Likely, you imagine it worse than it was. But my bones are healed. I can move, he said. I didn't bleed to death. The Monts who tended to you first were more capable than they let on. Oh, girl, sweetie, no. They are not more competent. Number one, the Monts left Liir in your care, a newbie with no medical training whatsoever, after they violated his bodily autonomy to check if any part of him was green. And then they left to go on a Scooby-Doo mystery while Jackal locked you two in a tower until your bodily autonomy was violated too. They are far from competent. Sister's doctor and apothecary might be Dr. Kelso and Dr. Cox in spirit, but in practice, I'd say they're more on the level of the Sacred Heart interns. But even that's generous. They're like the worst med students ever. When Candle mentions Jackal, Liir asks her why Jackal locked them in the tower together, and Candle just falls silent. She changes the subject, saying that she's just happy to be speaking in her own language again, since, you know, the Monts were racist fucking bitches who didn't bother learning her language and therefore pegged her as simple. Candle, honey, that's not a misunderstanding. That's institutional neglect at its best, and at its worst, it's outright institutional abuse rooted in racism. The bare minimum would have been to be learning a word or two to help communicate. But no, these bitches couldn't even do the bare fucking minimum. So it turns out the farm that they're holed up at houses an old printing press. At first, they think that the abandoned printings are just religious tracts, but upon further review, Candle and Liir figure out that these are actually protest speeches disguised as religious tracts, which is pretty fucking badass if you ask me. It's the power of the written word and the power of sick burns. Fuck yes. After they're together about a month, Candle tries to ask Liir to stay with her there in the most roundabout way possible. She asks Liir if he wants to leave, because if he wants to, you know, that's totes cool. If that's what he does, totally. And he immediately picks up that she's trying to ask him to stay. He does decide to stay long term, but he decides that he's going to go to Cumbricia's Pass for the Conference of the Birds first. Before he heads out, they have their first kiss, and it's very sweet. The call to adventure. The Conference of the Birds. Liir makes it to the Conference of the Birds and he's greeted by General Kainat, who's a cliff eagle. Liir tells everyone that he's only there to deliver the news of the Swan Princess's death, but the birds have bigger problems. There's a new threat looming. The Emperor of Oz has an army of dragons that's terrorizing everyone and they want Lear's help. This is the start of Lear's hero's journey. This is the call to adventure. Liir resists, wondering why they want him of all people, and General Kainat explains that it's because he can fly on Elfie's broom. But Liir, being Liir, is just filled with self-doubt, and he's just like, no, I have no talent. I don't know why you want to help me. I can't fly. You have flown as most humans have not, said Kainat simply. You have powers unique among the humans we've met. I can keep my balance, so what? It's the broom that has powers. Elphaba's broom. The wing doesn't work separately from the feather, Liir. They work in tandem. Well, I haven't the broom any longer, or haven't you heard? So I can't fly, which means this hardly concerns me. You were attacked by dragons yourself, weren't you? Or have I been fed misinformation? Well, I was. But that's between me and the dragons. It has nothing to do with you. They call us bird brains. Kainat was livid. There is a common cause among our kind and a flying bird, you dodo. Yeah, Liir argues that since he's lost Elfie's broom, he can't fly, so the dragon crisis isn't his problem. And Kainat pushes back, reminding him that he's been attacked by dragons too, and then he asks why did he even bother coming in the first place, and Liir just admits that he only came at the suggestion of someone else. A suggestion of what? That you deliver tragic news and then stay to laugh at us in our plight? That you see your fellow creatures chased, tortured, kept from associating freely, just as you were chased, robbed, and nearly killed, and then you, what? Walk home and retell the event for the amusing dinner-time conversation? Liir says no, and then he explains about his search for Noor, and he proposes that maybe they could help him search for her. The birds at the conference all argue with Liir more, and they explain to him that not only are the dragons attacking them, but they're attacking other humans to stir up contention between the humans and the animals and various other groups. Yeah, this is the same thing that we currently have happening in our modern day US. We have higher ups in our government, elected officials, mind you, that stir up disloyalty among their constituents. They pick whatever boogeyman you want. Let's be trans men, trans kids, immigrants, Muslims, Democrats, Antifa, you name it. They make us fight each other while they slowly dismantle protections that we fought hard for, and then we blame each other because that's what they want us to do. They want us to be distracted so that we don't notice the bullshit that they're doing. Then there's the Cherry Stones of the world, the Ben Shapiros, the fucking whoever, Charlie Kirk, insert whoever right-wing grifter's name exists there. They just exist to sow more distrust among the populace. In the meantime, they line their pockets and get filthy fucking rich. And then the problem is, they're harmed by this shit just as much as we are. But you know what? The difference between them and everyday citizens is they're willing to turn a blind eye if it helps them get richer. And just like in our story, these elected officials sow the seeds of our destruction because we are too busy fighting each other over our basic human rights to notice when it should be when we elected these people to help protect us. God damn it! This book, which was published 20 years ago, has just aged all too well, and that's really scary. So in our story, Liir agrees to be a human spy for the birds, and in return, they agree to go dig up the dirt on Nor for him. And the refusal of the call, Candle's bombshell. So Liir heads back to Apple Press Farm to see his new girlfriend, Candle, and since Candle can read the present, she knows he's on his way home and is expecting him when he gets there. After a good night's sleep, Liir wakes up to find Candle hacking at the root of the tree in a yard, and it's here she drops a huge bombshell on him. She's pregnant. Fucking Jackal. God fucking damn it. I wish Elphie had killed this bitch instead of Madame Morrible, who was already fucking dead anyway. Liir is understandably upset at this news, and he denies the baby is his. Now, to her credit, Candle isn't exactly thrilled about this either, but she's resigned herself to keeping the baby, and she tells Liir he's under no obligation to help parent the baby since he didn't choose her and she didn't choose him. Liir again responds to insist that the baby is not his until Candle explains that, yeah, the baby is definitely his, and this is how the baby came to be. We avoid the topic of pregnancy after this. When he tells Candle about the Conference of the Birds and the dragon attack, Candle mentions a fleet of dragons annihilated the quadling city of Koi, and she mentions this in between her bouts of morning sickness. On a personal note, I do not trust any bitch that says they've never experienced any morning sickness during pregnancy. You suck, and that's a fact. P.S. If you're one of those people who is going to come in my comments and say that you've never had any morning sickness while you were pregnant, I hate you and we can't be friends. Sorry, that's a fact. But they can't avoid the topic of the baby forever, and eventually the conversation circles back there. They talk and debate about whether or not he should do the bidding of the birds. He doesn't want to. This is Liir's refusing of the call to adventure. He's concerned about leaving her with the winter coming, and Candle tells him no, she'll be fine. She's got enough provisions to get her through the winter. The baby probably won't come until the spring. Besides, she can just go to the Monterey if she needs to be there for the last part of the pregnancy. Candle, please do not do that. Please remember my previous statements about, their incompetence and leaving you to be kidnapped by Jackal. Second, I am 99.99999% sure that they took absolute shit care of Elphaba, if any, while she was there and pregnant with your baby daddy, Liir. Seriously. It was clearly a traumatic birth, and if I'm reading that text correctly. This is coming from me, and I've had 2 emergency C-sections. I think Elphie had more of a traumatic birth than I did with both boys. Yeah, third, get a lawyer and sue them. Third, Liir, since you offered to help, go find the woman a midwife or whatever passes for an OBGYN in Oz these days, or at the minimum, just get her a goddamn copy of, what to expect when you're expecting, okay?
Merchandising.
Liir decides to do his bird spy bit and heads to the Emerald City. Now, when he crosses the threshold, he discovers that the Emerald City has undergone some extensive gentrification in the time that he's been gone. The whole city is just the merchandising quote from Spaceballs. In his absence, the Emerald City had undergone a makeover. Oceans of whitewash had been splashed to obliterate the graffiti. Along the canals, trees had been pollarded to force full head, and ringed with liquid lime to present disease. The strip he'd called Dirt Boulevard had been replanted, and it served as a promenade with the well-raked track for military drills and meandering paths along the bushes and fountains where the plutocrats might see and be seen. He supposed it all came down to this. The Emerald City was no longer the capital of Oz. It was Oz. It survived for the sole purpose of ensuring its own survival. Maybe it always done so, but now there was no pretending otherwise. Were there always so many ministries, or were there simply better marks? The Ministry of Comfort, that was aid for the indigent. The Ministry of the Home Guard, the Ministry of Sincerity. The sign beneath said, formerly the Press Bureau. The Ministry of Artistic License. Apparently now you had to apply to be an artist. Obelisks, cenotaphs, Marble statues, fluttering banners and pennants, souvenirs and kiosks, everything Oz. I love Oz. A keychain, a whistle, a reticule, a letter opener, a lorgnette cake. Oz, Oz. A military band every half mile performing gratis for the residents of the Emerald Hive. The city seemed to have its own theme song.
Spaceballs, the flamethrower! That kids love this one.
In the EC, he heads to Glinda's house to discover that she's out of town. She's retreating at her country estate, Mock Beggar Hall, because her her husband has died. And she'll be gone for a full month. I kid, it's true. Liir doesn't know this that well. So when a tiger in the yard tells him as much, he says sorry. The tiger responds, "Don't be, she's not exactly a pauper widow. And she wasn't much more than a paper wife to him anyway, so I hardly think she's fussed. She'll miss him, no doubt. We all will. He was a good sort in his way. Supports my family up country, or he did." Liir reunites with Trism, tests allies and enemies. With nothing to do, Liir has to move on from Glinda's house, so he goes to a baseball pitch where he sees kids playing games. And this is where he runs into Twink Trism again. Trism notes how Liir ran off several years back, and Liir tells Trism he'd get in trouble being seen with Liir, a deserter, to which Trism is just like, and then invites Liir out for a drink. Very direct. You see, hot boy? You invite him out for a drink, you'll have the hot boy in bed by the end of the night, I'll bet. Liir meets Trism at the bar, and once inside and all properly liquored up, they catch up. Liir asks Trism about General Cherrystone, which Trism just answers IDK. Liir asks Trism about minor menaceering, and the conversation just goes like this. On their third round, Liir began, "You were special forces, weren't you, back then? To the unnamed god, we're all special," said Trism. Liir was unsure if he heard sarcasm in that rejoinder. "Minor menacier back then. Husbandry, wasn't it? Oh, the lad's sharper than he looks." "Yeah, husbandry for a time. Not now. I don't like to talk about my work when I'm out larking." Liir tries to get more information out of Trism, but then there's a singer in the bar, Silly Pete, and then she has some choice words about the Emperor. Since it's Lurlinmas Eve, aka Oz Christmas, she's surprised that the Emperor hasn't banned Lurlinmas because, he's such a pious guy and Lurlinmas is such a pagan holiday. She's shocked that he hasn't banned it Oliver Cromwell style. Trism then gets uncomfortable when then Silly Pete starts going off on a rant about how Elphie, of all people, making poor sweet baby angel Liir very uncomfortable. "I'm a ditzy old relic, don't mind me," said Silly Pete. "You young things take everything so seriously, but you don't remember the bad old days of the wizard, the drought, how we lived back then. How we laughed? Ha! A lark. Hardly anyone stood up to him. Only some fool witch from the hinterlands, and we all know what happens to witches. All the astroturfing and smear campaigning that the wizard pulled a la Justin Baldoni, or pulling an astroturfing and smear campaign against his literal employee, Blake Lively, so that she'd be tarnished in the public image before she could say anything in her defense about being sexually harassed by her boss. Oh, yeah, and don't come at me with, she was a bigger star, or whatever. Here are the facts. It ends with Us was being made and produced by Justin's production company. He was directing it. He was also the lead actor in it. Blake was an actress in a movie doing a job. He did have more power over her, so do not come at me with that fucking bullshit. Or, we could talk about fucking Johnny Depp suing his ex-wife Amber Heard for defamation in an op-ed that never mentioned him by name or implied him in any fucking way. Financially abusing her long after their marriage ended. Don't come at me with any bullshit about his victimhood. He has a long history of treating women this way, as documented by scores of his ex-partners. The UK decision, they found 11 of 12 counts to be credible. Just because Amber Heard or Blake Lively is somebody you don't like doesn't mean that she wasn't a victim. It's the same with Elphaba. Just because the wizard or whoever fucking didn't like her doesn't mean that they were not victimizing her. There is hope for humanity, and there were those who saw through the bullshit and called it for what it was, and that's at least what's happening here. Silipede keeps talking about Elfie and about the Elphaba Lives graffiti, and that keeps popping up, after which Liir and Trism decide to split from the bar, and Liir feels like he finally attended a wake for his mother. While they're out and about, they talk about the show in the bar, and Trism says he's gone to the bar before when it wasn't treason night. And this is when we learn that the new Emperor of Oz is Shell Thropp.
No, no. Damn it, Larry!
Sorry.
You think that was treasonous? Liir was aghast. I thought it. He governed his language. Only stupid. She'd do better to keep her opinions to herself, or organize them first anyway. I wasn't even sure what she was on about. But it takes something like whiskey courage to pretend that much skepticism about the Apostle Emperor. He's a good fellow. The people love him. I myself feel flattered to have met him personally. You have? Really? What's he like? Trism shot him a look. Of course I have. I was with you the first time it happened. The night before you shipped out. Remember? He offered us his carriage. He was cynical and louche back then, as I remember. A lost soul. His awakening hadn't happened. The Emperor of Oz... No. Shell? Shell go to hell, Thropp? Liir goes off on what a fucking piece of shit Shell is and tells Trism about how he drugged and assaulted women, but Trism just doesn't fucking get it, or he doesn't want to hear it. He's just saying that Shell has redeemed himself. How do you redeem yourself from sexual assault, my guy? I do understand that what happened with Liir and Candle was sexual assault. However, and I would say the perpetrator would have been Jackal, because she wasn't fully consenting either. It's after this that a drunk Trism gets in a physical altercation with Liir over the fact that once the attacks on Bengda went down, he was forced to do things that he didn't like. We learned that once the attacks on that town went down, the Quadlings revolted against Cherrystone and the rest of Lear's company. He tells Liir that some of his buddies didn't make it, buddy.
I'm not your buddy, friend. He's not your friend, guy. I'm not your guy, buddy.
He's not your buddy, friend.
I'm not your friend, guy.
Yeah, let's give it up, guy.
Don't call me your guy. I am not your guy, friend.
I'm not your friend, buddy.
I'm not your buddy, guy.
It's after this, Trism, was now instructed to train the dragons to attack Coir. A fact he's haunted by, and he now resents Liir for being the cause of this pain. Oh, Trism, you sweet baby angel. Trism has Liir on the ground, pinning him in a pile of horse shit. Liir is able to keep his cool despite being held down by Trism and is able to meet him with compassion. Liir tells him that they've both done things that they aren't proud of, and then Trism breaks down and has a good snotty cry and snots on Lear's face. Gross. They move into a slightly less pretty neighborhood to continue their conversation without being overheard by spies. Now we learn about the attacking of the Monts and the tribes in the west were, again, surprise, surprise, all at the behest of the redeemed Emperor Shell. He's gone from being a sex pest to a war criminal. Bravo, you sex pest douche canoe. He tells Liir about how the dragons are trained to remove the faces of humans with surgical precision. And then we learn that when the dragons returned from the west with Lear's cape and broom. But the Monts, Liir said, young women devoting their lives to the service of the unnamed god, it doesn't figure. Trism explained that the old Montrees, with their traditions of independence, didn't suit the leadership style of the emperor, the apostle of the unnamed god. What's all this about an apostle? That's what the emperor calls himself. The humblest of the humble has been exalted by the unnamed god, so the apostle feels obliged to exercise the authority granted him. TLDR, Monterey's do not blindly accept the authority of this douche canoe sex pest, so he wants to do away with them. And he doesn't want other people picking up against him. What a fucking douchebag. Now, the cherry on top of this shit fucking sandwich is that Shell ordered the faces of the scrape should be preserved to make a point of them in a celebration. Fuck me. And Trism goes on and tells Liir about how poor Shell is just so put upon because his sisters were wicked and blah 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 blah. Trism explains that poor widow put-upon baby Shell would be so sad about having more powerful older sisters. Are we talking about the same Shell? Come on yourself. Suppose everyone in your family was thought to be wicked. Even were called wicked, almost as a title. But they were, thought Liir. It was my family too, or as good as. And this is all while Trism is telling Liir about how poor baby Shell was thought that the next house or bucket of water would be deep for him. And Liir comes back at him with this. Shell was about the last one I'd figured to have a low self-image. Surprise, surprise. Now he works out his inferiority at the helm of the nation.
Boom. Roasted.
Trism tells Liir about how Shell got the idea for the dragons from the random Gregory page that Alpha used to barter with the wizard in the last book. Trism doesn't know this. After a bit more conversation, Liir asks Trism why he can't just ask for reassignment, and Trism whines that he's the only one that's trained to do his job, and Liir then says, okay, you can leave, and Trism says he can't. His family. Giving a backhanded insult to our poor sweet baby angel Liir, an orphan who lost his mother at 14 and his father before he was even born. Okay. Trism goes off about how his family used to be gentlemen farmers, but during the drought they actually had to farm to eat. I mean, what were you doing before? And now they're what, non-gentlemen farmers? Please. Trism's family just sounds like the ballerina farm of Oz, out here cosplaying as humble poor folk while reaping the benefits of their fancy last name and social capital. Next, Trism's gonna go tell Liir how his grandpa owns Oz Blue Airlines or some shit. Liir again suggests that Trism just leaves, and again Trism's like, my family, telling them even about how, though his family is now just farmers, the fancy bun in his last name doesn't mean anything, and he just don't got no money. He doesn't understand that a person doesn't always have to have billionaire money to have privilege. His family still has connections due to their name, even if they aren't billionaire rich, and they're still rich in many ways that many people aren't. And let's not mention, he went to a fancy boarding school called St. Proud. But Trism's like, oh, I was only a day student. Bitch, it's a fancy fucking private school. So while your family didn't have enough money to maybe board you, they had enough money to pay your tuition. Do not come at me with that shit, bitch. The boys talk about dragons and about the myth of the time dragon, which is a dragon that's sleeping under the mountains, dreaming up the future and shit. That's the clock of the time dragon, and which is tangentially related to Shell's reasons for using dragons. While they're out and about, they come across some Elphaba Lives graffiti, and Liir gets grumpy. They came to a newsstand, shuttered up for the night. Elphaba Lives was scratched into char on the board. The family. Ha! They think they own her, Liir said, suddenly disgusted. The witch would have been foaming at the mouth. She was a flaming recluse and a crank. Even the handwriting had an intimate, proprietary look to it somehow. What do you mean? Liir changed the subject. And he tells Trism, okay, well, you kill the dragons and be free. And again, Trism whines, they will kill my family. And then Liir comes up with the solution that he wrote a note saying that he's the one that did it, and then took Trism as hostage. So he has no family to kill, except Sex Pest Shell, and he sucks, so go ahead, kill him. The approach, killing the dragons. So they approach the dragon stable. Trism tells Liir about how one of the dragons was killed by some cleaning solution that was left behind by a stable hand, and this becomes their plan. But before they can carry out their plan, Trism needs to feed the dragons. And their food is just human corpses from South Stairs prison. Gross. Oz needs prison reform, and that's just one of many things on the list of major problems that need solving, and that's including the sex pest running the government. Liir wants to get a look at the dragons, and when he looks at one, it seems to recognize him. They pull out their plans, and then the dragons start freaking out when they realize they've been poisoned. Before they officially skedaddle, the boys grab the faces of the scraped. Ick. And Liir reads his note, and it reads, I abducted your craven dragon master and aborted his evil work. He will pay for his offenses against lonely travelers. Signed, Liir, son of Elphaba. Trism sees Liir writing this and he asks him, not the Elphaba. No, bro, the other Elphaba. Of course the Elphaba. God, because you know so many fucking Elphabas. Don't be so dense, Trism. Between Fiyero, Liir, and Trism, it's just like a competition for the densest Thropp or Throppidation man ever. And I suppose you could add Daddy Frex to that, because god damn it, all these men are so fucking dense. They escape the city by hopping the Shiz gates, and they get a hotel room, which turns out to be a resting place for the soldiers. There's some sexual tension that builds, and then Trism makes his move and literally tells Liir that they're gonna bone. So they bone all night. You know, Trism is direct. You gotta hand it to him. Like I said, he's much better than certain other love interests in this universe. The ordeal. Back at the Monterey, the boys decide to skedaddle and they steal a couple horses along the way. Liir, having never ridden a horse before, says this is the worst day for him to attempt to learn that skill. Ow. They make it to the Monterey, and Sisters Doctor and Apothecary are back after neglecting their patient to go on their Ozzy and Scooby-Doo mission. When they hear Liir is back, they expect it will be with Candle, but no, he's with Trism. The HBIC want them to be there with her when she talks with the boys. Now, the boys are hungry and tired, and they stuff their faces while the Sisters Doctor and Apothecary talk with them. And then fucking Jackal's there, and she's fucking disgusting, and she openly admits to the crimes she committed. She says something gross like, only a daughter of Lurlina can produce the milk that boys make. Ugh. They're not even fucking grossed out by this. And the sisters ignore her, and they're just surprised that Candle took such good care of him and, you know, her being mute. Bitches, again, she wasn't fucking mute. You just never bothered to learn her fucking language. That's not being mute. That's not being able to communicate. Fuck off. Yeah, and then, like I said, they just treat Jackal not like the fucking criminal and sexual predator that she is, but just like a kooky old lady. Ha 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 ha. No. The woman is a predator and probably a sex trafficker. I don't know the law, but I'm pretty sure she is. At minimum, it's kidnapping or false imprisonment. I don't know. After some discussion, it's clear the boys are ready to pass out. And actually, Trism already passed out and was just snoring in his chair upright. They go to bed, and then Liir has another out-of-body experience / dream. Liir's third out-of-body experience. Liir dreams of searching through the cupboards at the Monterey, and he comes across a figure in the tower where he was lying in his coma. The figure sitting in a chair with a basket at their feet. Now, we understand this figure to be Elphaba, who's probably newly postpartum with the baby in a basket. The basket being a cradle. The baby's obviously Liir. We're connecting the dots from his earlier out-of-body experience at the apartment building and the mirror sex tape, and now this. What he saw in the topmost room where he had lain was a figure on a rush-bottom chair sitting away from the light, twisting her hands. Her dark hair was looped up on her head with no regard for neatness or propriety, just to get it out of the way. Her eyes were closed, but he didn't think she could be praying. He didn't know what she was doing. At her feet was a largest basket of woven twig. He didn't look into it. He couldn't. Every now and then, her shoeless foot would nip out from beneath the dark hem of her skirt and give the basket a little push. And because of its rounded bottom, the basket would rock for a time. Then the green foot would appear again, and the rocking would start over. This is a mother who has just given birth, is alone and in pain, or rocking her baby's cradle with her foot because she doesn't have the strength to do anything else. Can someone please just give the poor one a glass of water, or, you know, offer to hold the baby while she sleeps? For fuck's sake, Jackal, you claim to be a guardian angel. That's what an actual guardian angel would have fucking done. Ugh. The ordeal continued. Liir wakes up and gives Trism a smooch, but Trism's all in a snit for some reason. Oh, and fun times. Commander Douche Canoe Cherrystone is back, and he's demanding to know the whereabouts of Liir and Trism. The mods give him the runaround and try to give this chief violator of human rights the hint to get lost, and The head bitch in charge even tries to tell him that, we're all women here and, we women all be getting their periods at the same time. Actually, that's a myth, by the way. I found something that said there's no conclusive studies to prove this anecdotal evidence. But maybe him living in a household of women makes him not grossed enough by the period talk to fuck off, so he just presses on. He goes on and he admits to grooming and manipulating Liir for his own reason, and if that's not enough, he denies that Liir could be Elfie's kid, saying that he's too docile and biddable. I think you're confusing reserved for easily manipulated, douchewad. Liir may be quiet and, a bit dense, but docile and biddable he is not. It is classic Darvo. Deny, attack, reverse, victim, and offender. First, he denies doing any wrongdoing ever, saying that he was just trying to help the poor boy. Then he attacks Liir's credibility with the whole docile and biddable bullshit. Reverses victim and offender. He says, I tried to help the boy, but he just couldn't be helped. Fuck you, dude. Luckily, Glinda walks in when her very presence shuts his shit down.
It's good to see me, isn't it?
After the bullshit with Cherrystone is over, Liir and Glinda reunite. She explains that she'd cut her perfunctory mourning period short when she heard about the attack of the Basilica, wanting to make sure that her donation to the Monterey would be recognized if the Monterey became disestablished in the chaos. And she tells Liir that part of the reason that she wanted to give them the money was that Elphaba was here for a while. Liir offers his condolences on the death of her husband, but she says don't be. She tells him what we already knew, the man was her beard. She says she'll miss him enough, though, and she apologizes to Liir for losing track of him after he left the first time. Then they talk about Shell and how Elfie would be rightly disgusted at his ascension to Emperor with his weaponized fundy-ass shit. Liir still wants to argue, though. Surprise, that's one way to put it. Well, yes, she'd be outraged. Piety is the new political aphrodisiac. I suppose that's what you mean. He shrugged. What someone would feel after she's dead, that notion means little to me. She doesn't feel all that's left of her. Shades and echoes are fading by the hour. Glinda closed her breviary with a little slap. She hadn't been attending closely to her devotions anyway. That pesky slogan you see scrawled everywhere is right. She does live. She does. Liir snapped at her. I have no truck with that kind of sentiment. All butchers and simpletons live in that sense. Glinda raised her chin. No, Liir, she lives. People sing of her. You wouldn't guess it being you, but they do. There's a musical noise around her name. There are things that people remember and pass on. People can pass on lies as well as hope, as well as shards of memory. You refuse to be consoled, don't you? That's as much proof as I could ever need that you're kin to her. She was the same way, the very same way. The evening continues at the Monterey, but it's tense. The soldiers are hanging out nearby, and they seem to be butthurt that the Monterey isn't offering them some sort of shelter and food. Third Amendment, people. Third Amendment. Send their asses packing. Liir and Trism get nervous and request an audience with the head bitch in charge, and they explain that they want to turn themselves in. They're afraid that there was life lost in the Basilica attack that they initiated, and the superior Mont head bitch in charge is like, chill boys, the attack was at midnight. No one was there. Let me call a council before you do anything stupid. So she does just that. She calls the council with Glinda, the boys, and the other. The head bitch in charge is worried that this so-called holy emperor, Sexpest Thropp, might just sack the Monterey, and that even Glinda's generous donation wouldn't be enough to rebuild in that case. The head bitch in charge is appalled that this douchebag is using the name, or, not name, of the unnamed god for his campaign of greatness, or just to make himself feel a little better about his tiny little ego. Then she drops a bomb. She proposes that there not be a single head bitch in charge, but a government of 3. Yay! Democracy, sort of. There's no real time for democracy, so she names herself Sister Doctor. And Candle, even though Candle's not there. Like, what makes her think that Candle would even want there for a job? She was there for a month before she left, and she's not even present right now. Sister Apothecary, meanwhile, is completely butthurt that she wasn't picked. They all agree that the army wants the boys, and Liir proposes that Trism fly out on the broom, putting the room into pandemonium. It's true! Jackal's still fucking there and is all like, yeah, of course it's true, bitches. I gave it to her. I guess I'm like her guardian angel. Yeah, more like guardian mob boss. And it's at this suggestion that Liir remembers his vision of Elfie rocking the cradle with her foot. Are you starting to get it now, Liir? Outside, Trism tries to fly the broom, but no dice. Now, Glinda, being Glinda, has a whole Sephora store with her, and she proposes that she glam him up. Like, see what I got here. I've got some foundation. I've got some concealer. I've got some color corrector. Got some eyeshadow. Got a few palettes. Ooh, those are nice colors. This contour stick. Let's see here. Oh. It's like, oh, I've got some hair dye. We can dye your facial hair. I mean, you're already blonde. And Trism is like, thanks, but no thanks. Liir tells him to head to Apple Press Farm and maybe he can move Candle if he needs to. Nothing says stable relationship like introducing your pregnant girlfriend to your boyfriend, who doesn't know about the other. Liir then decides to go back to the Conference of the Birds and look for Nor. But before he leaves, Sister Doctor reminds him, dude, you promised Princess Nastoya. Liir is surprised that she's still alive, and Liir being Liir whines, I'm not Elphaba. But eventually he agrees to help. Back to the Conference of the Birds, the road back. Liir and Trism have their sappy goodbye in the courtyard, and they smooch, and then they part, and Liir flies off to Cumbricious Pass, where General Kynot tells him the Unamata attack. Yes, Shell's douchey plan for dividing up his citizens sadly worked. Liir tells the Conference of the Birds and General Kynot as much as he can, and tells him that the dragons are dead, so there is no more threat. They're hesitant to trust him, but Kynot decides that since Lear's Elfie's son, he's, as good as anyone. But Liir being Liir, still dense as fuck, just like dear old Daddy Fiyero, and still denies it. Oh, Liir, you sweet baby angel. Don't base your decision on a false premise, said Liir. I will never know for sure who my parents were, and even if I did, the son of a witch can be wrong as anyone else. Let us fly because you are persuaded we should, not because I say so. They're persuaded, and the Conference of the Birds flies out. As it's a long journey, they make a stop at Kiamo Ko, and Chistery greets them, and Nanny's there too. Nanny confuses Liir for Shell for half a second until he corrects her and responds with, good, I didn't like Shell very much. Poor guy, nobody fucking likes him. Before Nanny falls asleep, Liir asks her about Jackal. She tells Liir that she went to the Emerald City and she found Jackal and asked her for a potential solution for Melina having a green baby, trying to make sure that none of her other babies were green. None was needed as none of the other babies were green. Oh, just your dear old mother, dear Liir. The conference, calling themselves Witch Nation, flies to the Emerald City and they put on a demonstration for our dear old sex pest Emperor Shell. They form the witch and with Liir as the witch's eye while they're all shouting, Elphaba lives! Better sit down for the show, 'cause I'm gonna show you how it's done. The next day, the conference is about to disperse, and Liir asks the birds again to help look for Nor, showing them the drawing he grabbed from Kiamo Ko. A gray goose tells Liir that they stay clear of humans for the most part, and after this, General Kynot leaves. The goose, who's named Iskanari, decides that he's Lear's new best friend. He comes along with him. He's the extrovert friend of an introvert. Yeah, Iskanari's like, hello, you're my new best friend. And Lear's like, oh, okay. Along the way, Iskanari and Liir chat, and it's clear Iskanari's kind of full of himself. When Liir asks Iskanari what his plans are, he says, I have my own ambitions, said Iskanari. I'm intelligent as well as gorgeous, you know. Leave it to me. And Liir decides that he feels like an uggo compared to the goose. Like, dude, how bad is your self-esteem that you're comparing yourself to an animal? So while chatting, Liir asks Iskanari about what his talents might be, and, super cash. Iskanari tells Liir that he has a talent for reading the past. They make it to Apple Press Farm and they are greeted by a very pregnant and unhappy Candle. She's clearly ready to burst any day now, and I feel so bad for her. The resurrection. Liir asks Candle if Trism came by, and she confirms that he did, and she's annoyed that he didn't even bother to ask how she was. Liir, I know that this is precarious circumstances, but you two did agree to be a couple, and you did agree to be present for her. Keep your promise, bro. Pregnancy is rough. And I repeat myself, it's not as easy as right-wing grifters would have you believe. Candle also tells Liir that the Skrull, along with the dying Princess Nastoya, have made camp nearby, and Liir immediately starts bickering with Candle. He even has the nerve to ask about what she and Trism did, assuming they slept together. And Candle reads him for absolute filth, basically saying, Liir, I am 9 months pregnant. I feel like garbage, and Trism doesn't even speak my language. How dare you come at me with that nonsense? Honestly, I'm for Candle just grabbing the nearest towel and chucking it at Lear's head. While Liir is hanging up the grape faces, Iskanari comes by and gives Liir shit and tells him, bro, Nastoya is out there dying in a tent. Maybe focus on that instead of picking fights with your pregnant girlfriend. Speaking of which, she's really good with that instrument. And this gives Liir an idea. He meets with Lord Ottakos and tells him his plan, and then he goes to his very, very pregnant and swollen girlfriend Candle to tell her he's volunteered her to play music for the dying Nastoya, and by extension, the people with their scraped faces. Candle is so pregnant and very tired, but she agrees, but she's still clearly annoyed at Liir, who doesn't fucking get it. She put aside her Dominican when he approached and asked her for help. Don't do it for me, do it for her. I'm already doing laundry for her, said Candle. I have no more strength. You know people and you know kindness. Your music sang me back to life. You have that skill. It's called knowing the present. You could make the barnyard sing. I only ask that you know the present of Princess Nastoya and play her constituent parts to their own places. You think like a witch. I am not a witch, Liir. I'm not a witch, and I'm not thinking like one. I'm trying to learn from history. I'm trying to figure out what happened in the past and work to use that knowledge again. You played my past and brought me my life. Perhaps you can play her death to her? I don't feel well. She rubbed her eyes with her forefinger. Frankly, I haven't been sleeping, and I don't know if this pregnancy is going as it should. But there's no one here to ask. You don't feel badly as Princess Nastoya does. Liir! Fucking, yeah, Liir, you are so fucking dense. Do not say that to a pregnant woman. You are lucky she didn't slap you or sit on you. Yeah, Candle towel Lear's head, just saying. Again, this is the son of Fiyero, who whined at Elfie that he was hungry when she said she wasn't happy with him eating meat at her plate. Sweet, but dense. Took it seeing some bears and quadlings being bludgeoned in front of him to fucking get it. So Candle agrees to play, and then she sits and plays, and Iskanari tells Liir to listen to the voices of the dead. He hears the history of the people who are grateful not to be forgotten, and then Nastoya dies. Part 4. No place like it. Return to the ordinary world. So before Liir can return to his ordinary world, he needs to go and escort the Skrull to a Cumbricious Pass in case of a Unamata attack. Iskanari stays behind with Candle. Now the Skrull make their way safely and Liir heads home. While he's flying, he has a revelation about Nor. He realizes that all the Elphaba lives graffiti has been in her handwriting. She's been right under his nose the entire time and he's missed her. Welcome, baby girl Thropp. Liir arrives back at Apple Press Farm to discover that Iskanari and Candle have vacated the premises and Candle has given birth. So he approaches the baby and he thinks that the baby's dead, but he realizes the baby's alive when it cries. It's a girl and she has Candle's cheekbones. Liir has his first night at home with a newborn. That's rough. Now, see, I remember when my first son was born, he was up all night, and I kept thinking that I was doing something wrong until I called my mom, and my mom was like, look, he's fine. All new babies do this. They're basically vampires. With my second son, I was at least prepared to be up all night, so it went a little smoother. It wasn't easy or fun by any means, but Lear's lucky and it goes okay for him. He makes a cradle for his daughter out of sticks, just like his mama. But sadly, Lear's mama isn't there for him to call and be like, "Mom, the baby won't stop crying," and for her to say, "Lear, she's fine. She's a baby. The first night home with a new baby is rough. You'll be fine." He's at least comforted by the vision of Elfie with new baby Lear, and Lear feels guilty for leaving Candle and mopes about it while he's caring for his new baby. And then it's here. Lear finally gets the answer that he's been looking for this whole book. There was a heavy rain in the morning. The light was grayish and mossy with the low clouds. He had to concede that the baby wasn't a corpse. Really, she was alive. Maybe she'd been born stone cold, but she was alive now, still smeared with her birth blood and the watery beginning of her little feces. He took her into the doorway and held her up into the warm rain. She cleaned up green. That was Son of a Witch. Like I said, this book broke my heart into a million pieces. Lear's grief was so palpable, I just wanted to scream into the void for somebody just to give this poor little boy a hug. But funny story, while I was reading this book, so my 4-year-old son picked up this book and he saw the cover, He saw Lear with the broom and the bird. He looked at it and he said, "Oh, that's me, Mommy." Maybe that's the point, seeing yourself or your child and somebody who's just trying to find love, purpose, and connection. Now, Lear has discovered a major part of his identity, and one that was really there all along, and really shaped how he navigated the world and ultimately led him to stand against the oppressive systems of power. But he still has a long way to go. Our journey will continue next in A Lion Among Men, where we will meet Burr, the cowardly lion, and follow his journey for self-discovery while navigating a world that is shaped by misinformation and disinformation. And yes, his story will intersect with Lear's. That video is in progress, and I will get that out to you as soon as I can. Until then, I hope you enjoyed my unhinged analysis of Son of a Witch. If you enjoyed my unhinged analysis of Son of a Witch, please like, subscribe, and do all the YouTube things. And come back for more in Book 3, A Lion Among Men. Bye.